6 Sinister first date tales revealed, spine-chilling encounters that will haunt you forever. The date was supposed to be special. She thought the local diner, with its neon glow and the scent of sizzling burgers, would set the right mood. But for Sarah, a marketing exec from the quiet suburbs of Chicago, what awaited her at Maggie's diner would be far from charming. With every clink of cutlery came a growing sense of dread. Tom, the man who filled her screen with alluring adventures, turned into the nightmare she didn't see coming. The moment Sarah stepped in, the warmth of familiarity wrapped around her, but it quickly became suffocating. She couldn't shake the feeling. It started subtle, a twinge in her gut as Tom walked in, his confident smile masking something chilling. "Just wait until you hear about my skydiving escapade," he exclaimed as he settled into the booth across from her. As he spoke, his eyes seemed to glimmer, but not in a way that felt friendly. It was predatory. He launched into stories that dripped with excitement, but as she laughed nervously, unease took root. The way he mentioned her coworkers, by name, sent ice racing down her spine. How did he know them? Her mind whirred. Had she somehow forgotten meeting him before? The clatter of plates and laughter around her faded, and suddenly, the diner felt like a fishbowl closed off from the outside world. His eyes, once charming, seemed to pierce her very soul. "Sarah, you should tell your friends about our date," Tom suggested, and suspicion coiled around her heart. "You know, since we're both so well connected." Her heartbeat quickened, thrumming loudly in her ears. She tried to deflect, but his face tightened, his smile evaporating. Panic gripped her. This was supposed to be fun and adventure outside her comfort zone, but terror took her breath away. She wanted to escape, to bolt out the door, but when she offered to excuse herself for a moment, Tom's hand shot out, blocking her path. "You might want to stay a little longer, don't you think?" he said, voice a mix of honey and threat. A chill swept through her. It felt like a horror film where the protagonist suddenly realizes the villain has been right in front of them all along. Time stretched, each second laden with dread. "You shouldn't ignore the signs." Tom leaned in, his voice low and chilling. "I've had my eye on you for a while now." Confusion turned to terror as she replayed every odd comment, every flicker of recognition in Tom's eyes. She could feel the walls tightening, memories whispering of a dark truth, an old neighbor's vanishing, the stories of a hidden monster lurking in plain sight. "Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen." Now let's continue. The diner's atmosphere turned electric, tension crackling like static. Tom's final words echoed in her mind. "It's interesting how much you think you know someone, when they know everything about you." Each syllable dripped with darkness, and dread washed over her. The chatter of diners dimmed, shadows of faces morphing into indistinct forms. The exit felt farther away than ever. What had started as a meal turned into a test of survival. Now, faces she once found comforting morphed into the backdrop of a waking nightmare, her heart pounding a frantic message. How did she get into this? And more importantly, how could she get out? Panic surged within Sarah, clawing at her throat as she searched for the right words to deflect Tom's unsettling gaze. The diner's neon lights flickered ominously, casting shadows that twisted and stretched as if they were alive. She had to keep him talking, distract him long enough to make a break for it. What else do you do for fun?" she stammered, forcing a smile that felt like a mask slipping off. A sharp smile pierced Tom's features. "Oh, you know, the usual. I love to explore, and connect with interesting people." He leaned in closer, his breath somehow warm yet cold at the same time. "Like you." Sarah's heart raced. The walls of the diner closed in around her, the laughter of other diners now grating against her already frayed nerves. Every second stretched like an eternity as she tried to piece together his twisted familiarity. She caught a glimpse of a couple in the booth behind Tom. Their faces were blurred but unmistakably frightened, frozen in the moment of realization that she too was trapped. Then the woman looked away, as if the sheer weight of fear could shatter the illusion of safety. Tom continued, I know you think this is just a date, but it's more than that, don't you see? You're just the latest on my radar. He leaned back, a self-satisfied look settling upon his face. Her blood ran cold. What do you mean? What radar? She couldn't suppress the tremor in her voice. Every instinct screamed at her to flee, but his words petrified her. Tom chuckled, low and chilling. You see, I've been watching. Learning. Each person I meet is more than a chance encounter. It's a connection. His fingers drummed rhythmically on the table as if marking time, a countdown towards something dark. A nearby waitress rushed by, carrying a tray laden with food. For a fleeting moment, the gears of normalcy clicked back into place, and Sarah seized her chance. I need to go to the restroom, she blurted, not bothering to wait for a reply as she slipped out of the booth. As she rounded the corner toward the restroom, panic propelled her steps. She would burst through the door and push past the crowd until she reached the exit. But before she could reach her destination, Tom's hand gripped her wrist from behind, impossibly strong, chilling her to the bone. Leaving already? His voice was deceptively soft, a stark contrast to the tightness around her wrist. Let go of me. She strained against his grip, her breath coming in short gasps. Desperation clawed at her, pooling in her stomach like molten lead. He leaned down, his face closer now, a predator very much intent on his prey. Remember what I said, you can't ignore the signs. You know too much now. Adrenaline shot through her body, and with every ounce of strength she could muster, she yanked her wrist free. The grip slackened, but not enough for her to run. You're not going to hurt me, she bluffed desperately. Tom's laughter bounced off the walls, harsh and throaty. Oh, Sarah, I won't hurt you, yet. But you need to see the truth. You'll thank me later. With those words echoing in her ears, Sarah pushed past him, making for the heavy entrance door. Some connections can't be severed, Tom called after her, adding to the sense of impending doom that followed her flight. Outside, the night air hit her like a slap, cool and refreshing. She glanced over her shoulder, half expecting to see him materialize behind her. But only shadows danced on the sidewalk. Heart pounding, she fumbled for her phone, fingers trembling as she considered whom to call, unsure if it was safe to go home. Then she felt an unnatural chill, creeping closer. Spinning around, she scanned the dark street, but the only sound was the rustling of leaves. Was he following her? Breathing heavily, she started moving down the block, adrenaline pushing her steps faster. She had to warn someone, had to make sense of this nightmare. But as she turned the corner, she froze. There, standing beneath the street lamp, was the dark outline of a figure. It wasn't Tom, but the familiar gut-wrenching feeling surged back, pulling her into a whirlpool of terror. Sarah, the figure called, the voice sharp and echoing through the night. Did you think you could escape? A fresh wave of dread washed over her. Not just Tom, but someone else was involved. And before she could process, a cold chill wrapped around her, leaving one horrifying thought lingering. How many people were watching her, waiting in the shadows? As that question spiraled in her mind, she knew the truth was far more sinister than she could ever imagine. Sarah's breath came in shallow gasps, a mix of fear and confusion as she stared at the dark figure illuminated by the street lamp. Her heart raced, pounding relentlessly against her chest. Who are you? She demanded, her voice barely above a whisper as a primal instinct urged her to run. The figure stepped forward, revealing a familiar face beneath the glow, a face she hadn't seen in years. It was Mark, her old friend from college, but the warmth that once radiated from him now felt suffocated by an eerie presence. Sarah, it's been a long time, he said, voice dark and smooth, devoid of the joy it used to hold. You shouldn't be out here alone, especially not after what I've heard. What do you mean? Dread seeped into her words, twisting her stomach. She glanced around, the shadows seemed to close in tighter around her, pressing against her with an invisible weight. Tom is not just a strange guy. He's dangerous. Mark's eyes flickered, glancing over her shoulder into the darkness. And you should know he's been looking for you. A surge of anger rose with her panic. What are you talking about? How do you know Tom? She stumbled backward, trying to breathe against the vicious pulse in her throat. He's a collector, Sarah, Mark said, tension lacing his voice. He collects people. Every connection he makes, every bond, they mean something different to him. You've become part of his game. Sarah's mind reeled, memories crashing into her like waves, past encounters, odd moments, whispered conversations she had brushed aside. You're lying. No one collects people. That's insane. It might sound insane, but I'm telling you the truth. Mark snapped, voice rising as he stepped closer, desperation etched on his face. He's done this before. I've seen it, experienced it. You need to get away from him now before it's too late. What does he want from me? The desperation in her voice mirrored the terror gnawing at her insides. He wants to connect. But not in the way you think. Mark shook his head, eyes wide with urgency. You don't understand the depth of his obsession. He needs to dig deeper, learn more about you, and he won't stop until he gets what he wants. As if summoned by his words, a chilling laugh cut through the silence. It was Tom, shadowed yet unmistakably there, a silhouette dark against the faint light. You're both so naive, he purred, stepping out from behind the lamppost like a ghost materializing. One person's bond can be another's prison. Mark shifted protectively in front of Sarah, his stance defiant yet tinged with fear. Stay back, Tom. He shouted, shaky but firm. She's not a prize for you to take. What a foolish display, Tom chuckled darkly. You have it all wrong. It's not about possession but understanding. She deserves to know the truth, don't you agree, Sarah? All attention was on her now. Tom's words twisted in her mind, sparking a flicker of doubt. Was she really just a victim in this situation? Or was there something deeper, something embedded in her that he was after? Suddenly, a sense of urgency ignited within her. She couldn't just stand by while they played their chilling chess game. I'm not yours, Tom, she said, trying to project strength despite the tremor quaking through her limbs. And I'll never be. With a move faster than she could think, Sarah ducked around Mark and took off into the night, her heart pounding in her ears. She could hear footsteps behind her, both of them. The fear coursed through her, but the adrenaline surged higher. She had to escape. As she darted down the alley, shadows reached for her, whispering secrets of terror. With every turn she took, the haunting thought lingered, what if she couldn't outrun them? What if the darkness, not just within herself but around her, was too great, and then she saw the flicker of headlights at the end of the street? Freedom? Or the trap that Tom had set? Her choices loomed in front of her. Would she have the courage to face the truth? The shadows loomed closer, and she wondered, would they ever truly let her go? The alleyway air turned icy as Sarah sprinted, her breaths coming in frantic gasps. She could still hear the echo of their voices, Tom's mocking laughter slicing through the stillness like a blade. With each footfall, her heart raced faster than her legs could carry her. Freedom was just ahead, but the weight of fear clung to her like a second skin, urging her to keep running. As she neared the street where the headlights flickered, doubt clawed at her. Would those lights bring safety or lead her deeper into Tom's twisted game? Was Mark right? Was she a pawn on a chessboard that she didn't even know existed? She shook her head to clear the thoughts, focusing every ounce of energy on her escape. The headlights grew brighter, illuminating more of the world around her, graffiti-splattered walls, littered streets, and the distant sounds of life. But underneath that facade, an emptiness lingered. Someone else was watching. Suddenly, a sharp pain shot through her side. She stumbled, catching herself against the brick wall, the rough texture biting into her palm. Looking back, she saw Mark, his face twisted with concern but feet rooted to the spot. Not Tom. Just Mark. But the shadows behind him writhed. Tom was gaining. Keep going, Sarah. Mark shouted, the urgency in his voice cut sharply through her panic. Don't stop. With renewed determination, Sarah pushed off the wall and barreled toward the flickering light. She felt the cold tendrils of darkness stretching behind her, threatening to pull her back into their grasp. The sound of footsteps grew louder, echoing her fears hard, relentless, and unervingly close. She reached the street, breath catching at the sight of a lone taxi waiting by the curb. In that moment, hope ignited within her, only to be extinguished by the realization that she had one shot. One chance to escape and Tom would do everything to reclaim her. "Taxi!" she shouted, raising a trembling hand. The cab driver jumped at her suddenness but eyed the shadows warily. "Get in," he urged, glancing toward the alley. Sarah didn't hesitate. She flung open the door and dove into the back seat, slamming it shut behind her. "Drive. Just drive," she gasped, her voice frantic. The driver didn't need to be told twice. He tore away from the curb as if chased by the very wind, tires screeching against asphalt. Sarah could see Mark still standing on the corner, wary eyes darting between her and the darkness. How she wished for him to join her, but the impression of his face, filled with helplessness, dimmed her heart. "Where to?" the cabbie asked, his tone tense. "Anywhere but here," she managed. The city blurred past them, lights turning into streaks of color against the night sky. Each heartbeat felt like a countdown, as if time were measuring the distance, both to safety and to the looming threat she couldn't shake. But no sooner had they crossed onto a well-lit street than the cab driver slammed on the brakes. "There's no way I'm driving through this," he said, wide-eyed, gesturing out the window. Sarah's stomach dropped as she turned to look. True horror unfurled in her chest. Tom stood there, calm as a predator, a slow smile stretching across his face as he stepped into the glow of the street lamps. He held up a hand and the shadows danced at his command. "Sarah," he called, voice smooth and enticing, "you don't need to run. I offer you understanding, a bond like no other. Don't listen." The driver shouted, panic rising in his voice. "Go." Desperate, she pounded on the window, begging for him to move, and just as he turned to her, Tom lunged forward, dark tendrils spiraling around his feet, slithering in her direction. Sarah's breath caught in her throat. How had he followed them? What did he want from her now? "Drive," she screamed. But the driver was frozen, eyes glued to Tom. She lunged for the door, suddenly aware she might not have time to waste. What if this was all part of the trap? What if that dark figure was inescapable? With one frantic push, she flung open the door, stepping out into the night, the options sparse and terrifying. Would she confront Tom? Or would he take her again, deeper into his haunting world? With dread lacing every thought, Sarah stared into the abyss. What choice would lead her to survival, and could she even trust that there was a way out? The night swallowed her whole as Sarah stepped from the taxi, the air thick with dread. The city lights flickered behind her, a false sense of safety, but she could feel Tom's presence like a living shadow. He was close, she could sense it in her bones. She turned to face him. Tom stood just a few feet away, that eerie smile still carved into his face, contemptuous and confident. "You shouldn't have run, Sarah," he purred, his voice wrapped in velvet and malice. "I told you, I want what's best for you." Fighting the urge to recoil, Sarah took a cautious step backward, eyes darting around for an escape route, but all she saw was the looming threat of Tom and the inky dark that surrounded him. Where had the bright lights gone? "Mark!" she shouted, hoping he would somehow hear her. A small part of her still wished he would rush back and save her, but fear crawled through her veins instead. There was no time for hope, Tom chuckled, low and menacing. "He can't help you. You're mine now, Sarah." With a flick of his wrist, the shadows behind him surged forward, crawling like a living entity, ready to ensnare her. The driver, clearly panicking, finally found his voice. "Get in the car. Now." Sarah hesitated, torn between the safety of the taxi and the hold Tom seemed to have over her. But the dark energy swirling around Tom felt suffocating. Instinct took over, she bolted toward the cab. As she did, she heard Tom's voice, a deceptive melody dripping with cunning. Do you really think running will save you? You can join me, Sarah. I can show you things beyond your wildest imagination. Each word was like ice, lacing her instincts with doubt, but her feet pressed on, and she launched herself into the back seat. Go. Now. She urged the driver, her voice raw and frantic that he responded instantly, slamming the car into gear, tires screeching as they sped away. Sarah twisted around, just in time to see Tom standing there, fire flickering underneath his distant smile. The shadows dropped back, swirling around him like a cloak, but he didn't chase. Instead, he stood still, watching her with an intensity that made her heart race far too fast. The driver glanced nervously at her through the rearview mirror. What the hell was that? I don't know. Sarah stammered, breathless. Just drive. Don't stop until we're far away from here. As the cab careened through the streets, the chaotic city life whirled past in a blur. She felt a slight sense of relief until regret settled in. Mark was still out there. What if Tom wanted him next? She couldn't abandon him, could she? Where should I take you? The driver pressed, glancing at her with desperation. Anywhere, she said, but her stomach turned. Suddenly, the world around them began to shift. The streetlights faded into darkness, and the buildings morphed into shadows. She wasn't sure if it was a trick of the mind, or if something more sinister was happening. What's happening? She gasped, panic rising in her throat. The driver paled, his expression twisting in confusion. This isn't right. It's like where a deafening crash erupted, sending the car lurching, tires squealing. An unseen force slammed into the side of the taxi, shaking it violently. Sarah screamed as she braced for impact. Get out! Came the driver's strangled shout. But before either could react completely, a rush of darkness enveloped them. Sarah felt her senses numb as she was pulled from reality. She could hear whispers, feel the insatiable pressure of endless shadows closing in, wrapping around her like a vice. She gasped for breath, heart hammering against her ribcage. The driver's terrified face turned into a smear in the blackness, and just like that, the world fell silent. Where was she? What had happened? As she focused, the shadows began to part. A figure emerged slowly, stepping into a faint light. Welcome back, Sarah, it crooned, a sinister familiarity lacing each word. Her heart dropped. Tom stood there, but now his form shifted, blurring at the edges, flickering like a broken film reel. Did you really think you could escape? Fear coiled tightly around her throat like a noose. She needed to find a shred of courage, but dread paralyzed her. What was this new game? And as the shadows loomed closer once more, the chilling question echoed in her mind. How long could she survive in a world that twisted reality at will? The shadows fell heavy around Sarah, closing in like a tightening noose. Panic surged within her as Tom's voice slithered through the darkness, wrapping around her throat with the weight of a predator's gaze. Did you miss me? He asked, that infernal smile stretching wider, baring teeth that glinted in the thin light. She wanted to scream, to push back against the suffocating fear clawing at her. But the words lodged in her throat. Tom's eyes gleamed with a fervent hunger, a darkness that promised nothing less than her undoing. Why are you doing this? She managed, her voice trembling like a leaf caught in a hurricane. Every instinct screamed at her to run, but the shadows surrounded her with an unyielding grip. A sickly sweet laughter echoed around her, a chorus of mocking whispers that fed her growing dread. You're in my world now, Sarah. You don't need to know why, only that you're here to play my game. Darkness expanded, swallowing the light until it consumed her entirely. With each breath, her heart raced faster, echoing in her ears. The sound of it was maddening, like a countdown to an inevitable doom. Where was the driver? Was he safe? Where was Mark? Tom flicked his wrist, and the ground beneath her trembled, shifting as if it were alive. Say what you want. You can't escape the truth of what you are. She didn't understand. What did he mean? As he stepped closer, her instincts screamed at her to back away. What am I? A mere mortally tethered to a greater darkness. His voice was hypnotic, almost soothing, as if he was coaxing her to embrace this horrifying truth. But you're special, Sarah. Special enough to be of use. With a quick motion, Tom reached out, his fingers brushing her cheek with an icy gentleness. A jolt coursed through her, not just shock but something far worse, a connection, a tether linking her to that terrifying shadowy realm. Images flashed before her eyes, horrifying visions that tore at her sanity. That in an instant, she saw Mark, the panic on his face, the desperation in his eyes as he searched for her. The reflection of her own terror mirrored in him as he called her name. Sarah. Where are you? The darkness convulsed, and she felt the fabric of reality split and ripple. No. She screamed, reaching toward the fading vision of Mark, her heart tearing at the thought of abandoning him to whatever dark fate Tom had in mind. But Tom only chuckled, as if savoring the depth of her fear. You think you can save him? Every attempt will only tighten the grip of this world around you. It's so much easier to give in, to embrace what you truly are. As Tom's words dripped with venom, Sarah's mind raced to find an answer to break free from his suffocating power. Was this her end? Would she succumb to the shadows, to Tom's dark temptation? Then, suddenly, a fleeting sense of hope ignited within her. What if she could fight him? What if she could turn the shadows against him? With newfound resolve, she stood tall, almost defiantly. You don't own me. Tom's smile faltered, and a low growl escaped him, deep and primal. How delightful. You think you can resist? Very well, let us see how long your defiance lasts. The shadows recoiled, but they hadn't retreated. They shifted, ready to spring as Tom's gaze burned into her. Fear was still there, clawing at her, tightening around her resolve. But Sarah held on to the flicker of hope. Every part of her was alive, pumping determination through her veins. What's your next move, Tom? She challenged, forcing her voice to remain steady, even as her pulse raced. His expression twisted into something sinister, something more monstrous than she had realized. You'll learn soon enough, Sarah. The game has only just begun. And just like that, the ground beneath her feet began to tremble, fracturing into cracks of darkness that threatened to swallow her whole. As the shadows roared with new energy, Sarah felt a chill race through her body, the taste of fear rising in her throat. What lay beyond the cracks? Would she become lost in the darkness, or would she find a way to shatter Tom's control? Her heartbeat thundered in her ears, drowning out the whispers that beckoned her to surrender. But the question lingered in the air, biting at her resolve. Would her defiance be enough to break the cycle, or had she stepped into a nightmare from which there was no escape? The ground shuddered, and Sarah felt the abyss tugging at her ankles, eager to claim her. Desperation clawed at her heart, and she dug her fingers into the earth beneath her, anchoring herself against the impending collapse. The shadows writhed, spiraling upwards like serpents hungry for a meal. Join me, Sarah, Tom cooed, his voice dripping with the sweetness of deceit. It's so cozy here, so warm. His smile twisted into an eerie grin, stretching wider as the darkness pulsed around him. No. She wouldn't give in. There had to be a way out. With a surge of adrenaline, she twisted her body, searching for an exit. But the shadows pressed in, blurring the edges of her vision, leaving her disoriented in their inky embrace. Don't you see? Tom continued, his voice now a low hiss, echoing through the dark. This is where you belong. The truth awaits you. She felt them, the whispers rising in an alluring chant, beckoning her to submit. Each word slithered into her mind like a waving hand, inviting her to let go, to let the darkness in. No. She shouted, her voice tearing through the whispering caress. The sound felt foreign, as if she was screaming underwater, but it was enough to momentarily still the shadows that danced around her. What's wrong, little girl? Afraid of the monsters? Tom mocked, and the darkness shimmered with malevolence in response. Fear is just part of the game. A thought flickered in her mind like a dying light bulb. If Tom was playing a game, then maybe there was a way to turn the tables. Game or not, she retorted, trying to sound braver than she felt. "I'm not afraid of you." The defiance laced through her veins like fire, igniting her strength. Tom's laughter rippled through the air, chilling her. "Such spirit. But you misunderstand. Fear is not your enemy. It's your companion here." With each word he spoke, the shadows danced closer, sleek and sensuous, licking at her legs like flames. She could feel their icy bite creeping up her skin, numbing her resolve. In a moment of clarity, Sarah closed her eyes. Instead of fighting the fear, maybe she could use it. It was time to flip the script, to face the darkness head-on. "Show me," she shouted into the void, clenching her fists. "If I'm special, then what is this? Let me see my truth." The laughter ceased abruptly. A palpable silence enveloped them. Then, without warning, the shadows surged forward, gasping around her as if they were alive, pulling her deeper into the darkness. She braced herself. Suddenly, Sarah was thrust into a vision, a flood of memories. She witnessed herself in moments of vulnerability, the shadows entwining with her fears. It revealed her regrets and failures, brandishing them like a weapon. Tom's laughter echoed again, now a sinister chorus. "See? You were always meant for this. Welcome to your true self." She felt their weight, the memories twisting in on themselves, exerting pressure like a vice. But as they began to suffocate her, something snapped. No. She refused to let the shadows define her. In that split second, she felt a sliver of light emitting from deep within. The warmth washed over her. She was a fighter, not a victim. With every ounce of strength left, she took that light and harnessed it, pushing back against the shadows. They recoiled, hissing as tendrils spun away from her outstretched hands. A blinding flash illuminated the darkness, revealing a fleeting glimpse of the world outside. She could see Mark, still searching for her, lost but free. "Sarah!" he yelled, his voice a lifeline that pulled her from despair. Just as quickly, the vision faded, and she found herself alone in the shadows again, heavier now, but with more power at her fingertips. Tom's eyes widened in surprise. "You think you can fight me? Watch me!" she shouted, her determination flooding her senses. In that moment, she realized, she wasn't just a pawn in his game. As she unleashed the light within her, swirling it like a battle cry, Sarah felt the shadows start to fracture. The darkness could be beaten. She could change the game. With one last push, she thrust the radiant energy outward, aiming for Tom, who stood locked in shock. Would she finally be able to send him into oblivion, or would she too become ensnared in the shadows that had once consumed her? Would this act of defiance seal her fate, or would it finally free her? The darkness stirred, waiting for her next move. The light burst forth from Sarah like a wildfire, breaking the suffocating grip of the shadows. She could almost feel them screaming as they were forced back, the tendrils of darkness shriveling like dried leaves under the heat of summer sun. But Tom didn't retreat. Instead, he leaned into the fray, a deranged grin spreading across his face. "You think you can resist?" he sneered. What a delightful little delusion. His body twisted, and the shadows responded in kind, forming a swirling vortex around him. In a heartbeat, Sarah was tossed aside, her energy dissipating like fog in the morning light, leaving her vulnerable. The darkness closed in again, hungry for retribution. Breathless, Sarah stumbled, the weight of her past crashing over her once more. Old insecurities clawed at her mind, nightmares hushed by daylight, but waiting impatiently for darkness to reclaim them. The weight of regret pressed on her chest, and the whispers returned, seductive and sweet. "You'll never win against him. He knows you too well." "No," she shouted defiantly, forcing the words out through gritted teeth. But doubt snake coiled around her as she fought to breathe. She had to remember the warmth, the light. Remember Mark in that moment of desperation. She reached out with trembling hands, fingers brushing against the remnants of the light she had unleashed. It flickered like a candle against the increasing gloom. She focused, not just on the light, but on the emotions that fueled it: love, hope, and the memory of laughter shared with Mark, a beacon in this abyss. "Come on, Sarah." Mark's voice whispered in her memory. "You can do this." Fueled by that spirit, she summoned the energy again. A fiery glow erupted at her fingertips, illuminating the shadows that sought to engulf her. The warmth spread outward, battling the coldness, tearing through the darkness with raw determination. Tom recoiled momentarily, but his laughter echoed, a chilling reminder of his power. "You think nostalgia will save you? All you're doing is burying yourself deeper in your own lies." Sarah felt the darkness coil tighter, but she refused to succumb. "It's not just nostalgia. It's strength." Her voice was stronger now, each syllable echoing through the void. "I am more than my fears." The ground beneath her began to crack, fissures snaking across the earth like jagged veins. They reached towards Tom, who was still grinning, though a hint of worry flickered in his eyes. "No!" he shouted. With a final push, she propelled her light forward, a blazing wave that surged toward Tom. The shadows screamed as they were consumed, twisting around him until he was surrounded by a cocoon of his own making. But just as she thought she had him cornered, the shadows erupted from the ground with a force that knocked her back. She landed hard, pain lacing her arms, but the shadows weren't finished. "Did you really think it would be that easy?" Tom's voice boomed, now deeper, more resonant. He began to morph, his body melding with the shadows, becoming something monstrous, looming large and grotesque. Sarah's heart raced as she staggered back to her feet, dread pooling in her stomach. The ground groaned beneath her, and the air felt thick, oppressive. Tom's new form towered over her, eyes gleaming like dark stars, a predator sizing up its prey. The weight of her situation crashed down on her again. But she wouldn't back down. She had to finish this. "Let us see what you really are," she yelled, as the ground beneath her trembled again, pulsating with energy. But whether it was her light, her fear, or perhaps all of it together, she didn't know. All she could do was focus on that flickering flame inside her. The shadows closed in, swirling faster, and she prepared to confront the monster made from her past. Would she emerge victorious or fall victim to the darkness? In that moment, a surge of power coursed through her. It was now or never, and she was determined to discover the truth, whatever it might be. But as the first tendrils of shadow lunged for her once more, a deeper, rumbling voice cut through the chaos. "You're in my domain now, Sarah." And with those words, the real game had just begun. The shadows coiled around Tom, his monstrous form shifting grotesquely, a ghoul composed of darkness. Sarah's heart thudded erratically in her chest, fear triggering every primal instinct to flee. But something in her resisted. She couldn't just run. Not after everything. "Face me," she shouted, her voice ringing out, desperate and defiant. The ground beneath her resonated with the force of her words, echoing a tremor of energy not just from her, but from deep within the earth. The vision of Mark, smiling and effervescent, flickered in her mind like a photograph framed in light, urging her on. She breathed deeply, tapping into the reservoir of resilience that had brought her this far. Tom laughed, a low rumble that vibrated through her very bones. "You think courage can save you? A child's fantasy against a true nightmare?" As if to prove his point, the shadows surged, reaching for her with fingers like cold steel. Sarah's spine tensed. A sharp gasp escaped her lips as she thrust her palms forward, willing every ounce of light she had left to blaze forth. This time, she wasn't just reaching for warmth, she was clawing through the nightmares themselves. A brilliant white explosion erupted from her outstretched hands, sending splintered light cascading in every direction. Tom screeched, a sound twisted with rage and agony. The shadows writhed, twisting tighter around him, and for a moment, hope soared with the brightness, but that glimmer dimmed as Tom steadied himself, morphing again, his features shifting into something even more monstrous. "You think you're strong? You're just stoking the fire of your own destruction." Thick shadows swirled, lunging at her, but she surged forth, cracks in the earth pulsing with her light. All at once, she felt weightless, suspended in the chaos around her. The ground had become a battlefield, as fissures shot up around Tom, threatening to swallow him whole. Mark, she whispered, channeling the energy that flooded her heart, remembering his courage. He wouldn't want her to give up. Taking another step forward, she felt the ground tremble beneath her feet, responsive to her anguish and anger. No more, she declared, projecting every ounce of love, hope, and fury she had into the light. It erupted with a ferocity that made the air crackle, warmth enveloping her, vibrating against the encroaching shadows. Tom recoiled, eyes wide with fear, but nothing could prepare her for what happened next. With a flash, he swung his arms, and a wave of darkness surged toward her, faster than she could react. The impact was like a wall slamming her back. Pain exploded through her, knocking the breath from her lungs. She gasped for air, the light flickering around her, dwindling just like her hope. See? You have nothing left. Tom's voice dripped with malicious triumph. The mockery twisted her insides, but she refused to let it defeat her. Buried beneath layers of darkness, she felt her heart pulse in defiance strong, steady that a strange whisper filled the silence that followed. It was soft, almost tender, swirling like a breeze that beckoned her to listen. You are not alone. The voices of others, faces lost but familiar, edged into her awareness. Not just Mark. A chorus of support filled her thoughts, pushing back the cold encroachment that in that moment, Sarah realized she wasn't just fighting for herself, but for everyone who had faced their own darkness. The pain in her chest morphed into a fiery resoluteness. Enough! She roared, conjuring the collective strength of all those she had loved and lost, channeling it into one final blast of light, but just as the brilliance surged, an unexpected dread swept over her. A chaotic mix of shadow and light engulfed her, twisting into a swirling vortex that threatened to consume everything in its wake. Everything you hold dear will turn to dust. Tom bellowed, ensnared within the darkness, his voice balancing on the edge of sheer madness, struggling against the torrent. Sarah cried out, I want to let you take anything else from me. Then darkness cracked, a fissure breaking through their chaotic dance. Each heartbeat became a countdown, every breath heavy with peril. And within that fracture, she felt an answer whisper back. A presence unknown but familiar, rising against Tom's relentless force. Was she finally ready to embrace the truth of her strength, or was she about to be swallowed whole? The shadows trembled. Force surged. And Sarah braced against the encroaching void. What lay beyond the light could be salvation or a final reckoning. In this dance of darkness and light, would she emerge as a victor or fall prey to the shadows once more? The world spun around Sarah, a dizzying whirl of dark and light, fear and determination. Each heartbeat reverberated like thunder in her ears, drowning out Tom's twisted laughter. She felt the shadows pressing closer, enveloping her, yet a flicker of warmth ignited in her chest, pushing back against the encroaching void. Enough! She shouted, her voice piercing through the chaos that surrounded them. I refuse to be another trophy on your twisted wall. The words burst forth like a dam breaking, flooding her with courage. The shadows recoiled momentarily, flickering at her declaration as if her defiance had struck them. They seemed to hesitate, and in that gleaming moment of vulnerability, she pushed forward. Sarah surged with renewed energy, channeling everything she had left: the warmth, the love, the fear, and shaped it into a beacon. Light! She cried, forcing the radiant energy outward. It erupted from her fingers in a dazzling wave, pushing back the darkness like the dawn chasing away night. The shadows shrieked, disintegrating upon contact with her brilliance. Tom's eyes widened, shock transforming his once confident face into a mask of horror. No! He roared, but the light surged forth relentlessly, erasing his control. That it felt liberating, electric, as if she had tapped into an infinite source of power. The fissures in the ground split open further, swallowing parts of Tom's dark form as he struggled against her light. You don't understand. He bellowed through gritted teeth, now appearing a fraction of his former monstrous self. You can't escape the truth. Yes, I can. Sarah shouted, her voice ringing with conviction. I am more than your game. With one final push, she unleashed everything she had. The ground shook violently as a blinding explosion of light erupted, engulfing them both. For a heartbeat, there was silence, an all-encompassing silence. The shadows around her flickered and dimmed, evaporating like mist in the sun. Sarah stood in the dazzling light, heart racing, breathless. She felt weightless, as if the burdens she carried, the fears, the doubts, were nothing but fading echoes. Suddenly, everything shifted. She stumbled forward, the bright world collapsing around her, and then she felt the gentle embrace of something solid beneath her feet. When the blinding light finally receded, Sarah found herself standing on the street outside the diner, the neon glow bathing the world in a soft, reassuring hue. The air felt different, lighter, almost blissful. Sarah. She turned, breath hitching at the sound of a familiar voice. Mark stood there, concern etched into his features. His presence felt like the warmth of a safe harbor amidst the storm she had weathered. Mark. She gasped, enveloping him in a desperate hug. The embrace anchored her, grounding her to reality. "I thought I'd lost you," he said, his voice shaking. Sarah pulled back, looking into his eyes, reflecting both relief and apprehension. "Tom, it was all real," she replied, trembling as the memories rushed back like a wave. "He collected people, he wanted to trap me. But I stood my ground, and somehow, I found a way to fight back." Mark's gaze deepened. "You're incredible, Sarah. You faced darkness and pushed it away. That's something so few can do." Tears brimmed in her eyes as the weight of everything coursed through her veins. Somehow, she had made it. She was alive, free from Tom's terrifying grasp. The thought sent a shiver down her spine, but she stood tall, heart racing from more than just fear. "I did it because of you," she confessed, voice thick with emotion. "You were my beacon. I knew you were out there, that I wasn't alone." Mark stepped closer, his expression steadying. "And you're not. You'll never be alone again. We can work through this together." Sarah nodded, feeling the walls around her heart begin to crack. Together. That was key. The fear began to lift, the shadows no longer looming over her shoulders. With a newfound resolve, she took a step back from the edge of despair. Together, they could construct a future free of darkness, a future where they not only survived but thrived. As they walked away from the diner, the neon lights shining brighter than ever, Sarah felt a sense of peace settle inside her. The battle with Tom had forged a strength she never knew she possessed, and while darkness might linger on the outskirts, she had cast a light too powerful to be snuffed out. So, as they turned the corner, hand in hand, her heart sparkled with hope as they left the shadows behind. But even as relief washed over her, a lingering thought tugged at her. Was Tom truly finished? Or did remnants of his darkness still linger, hiding, waiting for the moment she would least expect it? She wouldn't forget the truth she had learned. The journey was far from over, but at least now, she was ready to face every twist and turn that lay ahead. So many adventures awaited, and she was prepared to embrace every single one. Now, as we wrap things up, don't forget, you need to subscribe now. Don't wait even one more second to ensure you don't miss our next exclusive stories. Smash that like button now to feed the algorithm, and show your support. Flood the comments section with your thoughts and reactions to the ending. We want to hear all your theories. And lastly, instantly share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. Remember, true fans understand the importance of supporting the channel. Your actions can make a difference. Let us keep this community growing.